Okay. Okay, so we're starting today from part 1, chapter 3, letter 5, paragraph 5. But let's recap where we have been until now. Okay? So this is the third chapter. So the first chapter told us all about the basic knowledge that we need to have about the nature of God, or things that we don't know about the nature of God. There were 6 things there. Okay, we're not going to go through those, but there were 6 things that we needed to know about the nature of God. That was the first chapter. The second chapter, which was about the role of creation, the purpose of creation, we discovered that the purpose of creation was so that God could create a being to whom to bestow the ultimate goodness. Okay, and then the ultimate goodness would be God himself. And so God would create a being that would be allowed to reconnect back to God. And that would be the way he would earn the ultimate goodness. The ability to connect to Dveikus, what we call Dveikus, is the ability to connect to God, and that is the ultimate goodness, and that is the purpose of creation. And now within that in order to achieve that purpose, that goodness would need to be earned, right? In order, it should be intrinsic, should not be just something that would be given to that person, like a charity event. It would be more like something that he earns and therefore establishes within himself. And so in order to achieve that, God had to create elements of perfection and elements of imperfection. And so when a person pursues elements of perfection, he's coming closer and attaches himself to God. When a person pursues elements of imperfection, he distances himself from God, and so he does not achieve that purpose. Okay, that was chapter 2. In chapter 3, he can, right. So this creature, he told us in the end of chapter 2 that this creation that was going to be the recipient of this goodness is humanity. Okay, Adam. Let's call him the first man as Adam. And he now in chapter 3, which is what we're doing now, talks about this creation. What are the parameters and what are the characteristics of this creation called Adam, man? Okay, and he basically told us that the idea must be that this creation has to have free will. If we're talking about that he has to earn this goodness, so therefore he must have free will because he has to choose, right? The whole purpose is choosing, number 1. Now, number 2, he has to have unfettered access to both elements of creation, of perfection, and elements of imperfection. He is not prevented from one way or another. If he wants to pursue good, he's not prevented from doing that. If he wants to pursue evil, he is not prevented from doing that. And but in order for him to have a pull towards those things, he said that he created Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, the urge, the good urge and the bad urge, right? So something that pulls him towards things of perfection and something that pulls him towards physical things of imperfection. Okay? Then he said, in order to achieve that, the creature that was created was a compound creature. It was something that that contained both contained something that was made from a fusion of 2 opposite things, of a neshama, right, a pure, lofty neshama, and a very physical, very kind of limited body. And so those 2 things are so polar opposites. They really are, and they're in a constant state of war. They're in a constant state of struggle. There's no, right? So so a person is a very unstable kind of creation. We didn't dwell on it then, but if you think about it, it's a very interesting thing. If you think about it, it's not just, okay, I have this part of me and of this part of me. It's really more like I am this unit composed of very different things, and those things are constantly pulling me in different directions, right? The neshama is pulling me constantly towards God, and the body is pulling me constantly away from God. Okay, that's the simple. So also I'm just thinking out loud now. So so we made a point that the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, that the good urge and the bad urge is not necessarily the same thing as the neshama and the guf, right? They're different things. The neshama is being pulled by the Yetzer Tov towards good, and the body is being pulled by the Yetzer Hara towards bad. I'm not sure of that. And now that I thought about it, I mean, I heard a shir on this, and that's exactly how it was set up, that the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara are different from the neshama and the body, and that's how I always thought also. Now that I'm rereading it again and again, and I'm just wondering, maybe it's not that clear cut. Maybe it's not that simple. Maybe the neshama by its very nature, by being its chelik alakam ma'al, we say that neshama is really like a chistitza of Hashem. It's a part of God. So maybe by its very nature, it kind of automatically is pulling back towards its source. Understand? So I'm not sure if there's another entity called the Yetzer Tov. Just it happens to be that magnetism that the neshama has towards to return to the Creator, that magnetism, we call that magnetism Yetzer Tov. But I don't know if it's a separate. I'm not sure. So as we explore, right, as we continue exploring, we'll get back to this question because it is going to come back. That's number one. The other thing that we pointed out that he says in letter base of this chapter, so on page 44, we pointed out that there is this war, and so if the neshama is victorious, then the neshama is elevated, and it drags the body along with it, right? But then he said, but if the person allows that the physical part of him becomes victorious. It doesn't, meaning by neshama it says that the soul becomes victorious. By the body it says, but if a person just lets the body become victorious. So we pointed out that it seems that the Ramchal's point is saying that the neshama has to make an extra effort in this state, not in today's state, but even in the original state. We're going to see that it's changing, but in the original state of Adam, which is in a state of what's called mishkal, where he was perfectly balanced between good and evil. Even in that state, if you let things go, just let things go in status quo, the body has more sway than the neshama. Right? That's what we pointed out last time. Good? Now, so it's interesting because in this week's Parsha, okay, so the Gemara says in Yuma, like this, but not from this week's Parsha. It says, Omer Resh Lakish says, Mai Diksiv, what is it written? Im leleitzim hu yolitz, if for cynics, he is cynical, Ula novim, but to the humble ones, yitin chen, he gives favor. Okay, im leleitzim hu yolitz, ula novim yitin chen. Okay, so to the cynics, whoever he is, either God, that might be himself, a different interpretation. I don't want to dwell how they derive this from the pasuk. That's what the pasuk says. That for cynics, he is cynical, and to those that are humble, he gives favor. Okay, so Resh Lakish says from this pasuk he deduces boletame, somebody who wants to defile himself, meaning he wants to go away. All right, poischin loy, they open the door for him. Okay, boletaher, but if somebody comes to purify himself, in other words, he's moving towards the good, misayein lo oisoy, they assist him. Okay, so good. So the first lesson here is that if a person goes in any direction, again, he has free will. He can go to the bad, he can go to the good. But there's a second element over here that on the side, if he goes towards good, he gets assistance. They assist him. While if he goes towards the side of bad, Just poischin, they allow him to make it to happen. That they allow it to happen. So why is that? What's the difference? Why is but by one says they allow it to happen, by the other says, right? So the Kli Yakar in Parsha Shmini says that because when a person goes towards goodness, he gets assistance, he gets siyata d'shmaya, he gets help, and it's almost guaranteed that he will get to his desired end. While if a person goes to the side of good, they let him do it, but they don't actually help him do it. So maybe maybe they let him do it, but maybe there are many things can come along the way that will actually prevent him from actually doing it. That's how the Kli Yakar understands. Mm-hmm. The Iyun Yaakov says no, because he says the person doesn't need help to go to the side of Tuma. All they need to do is just allow it to happen, and he'll just roll downhill. That's just the natural status quo of things. If he wants to go in the uphill direction, which is towards perfection, then Misayein Loy, then they help him. Okay, and it brings now the Gemara. The Gemara says that every day a person's Yetzer Hara is strengthens against him, and if not for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's help, if not for HaShem helping him, he would have lost a long time ago. So he says, you see that when it comes towards going off, right, then you're rolling downhill, and if it goes an uphill, that's when you need the help. That's why there is a difference in language between the two, right? So the second interpretation, the Kli Yakar's interpretation, is actually seems to be more, let's call it from, like, oh, if you want to be a tzaddik, they will help you. They will help you get there. If you want to be a rasha, okay, we'll see. Maybe yes, maybe they'll let you do it if you really try hard, but it's not a guaranteed. While the Yaakov is saying no, if you want to be a rasha, all they have to do is just let go of the reins, and you're going to start right. Good, right? So this fits well. The second interpretation fits with the Ramchal. The Ramchal is saying, if the neshama is victorious, right, the neshama has to be actively victorious. While if the body, it just says if a person lets the body, then you have to let the status quo allow the status quo to happen. The physical is more, it will be more successful in this world. Good. Okay, so that's that. There's more to it, but the Gemara a few lines later, which is really from this week's parsha. I'm just going to read it because I don't know if it's the same, it's different, and there's a lot to think about here. But Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, no skipping that. Tana Rabbanan. So in this week's parsha, it says in the end, when it talks about kosher animals and non-kosher animals, it says Al titamu bahem. Do not defile yourselves in them, meaning don't consume them. V'nitmei sembom, and you will be defiled in them. Do not defile yourself in them, for you will be defiled in them. So what's that weird language? So the Gemara says, Odom metame atzma me'at, a person defiles himself a little bit. Metame noisoy harbe, they defile him a lot. Okay, meaning. So they explain that it's based on Avera Gerera Severa. One sin causes another sin and another sin and another sin, right? So the person does a little bit of a sin, it starts snowballing into other things. Okay? So Odom Metame Atzma Me'at, the person defiles himself a little bit, they defile him a lot. Melmata, he defiles himself a little bit from below, right, in this world. He defiles them. Milmata, he does a little bit from above. They defile him from above, meaning they help him, which doesn't seem like the first statement. They actually help him get more into it. But oilam hazeh, a person defiles him in this world. They defile him in the next world. Okay, then the reverse. The next pasuk says the following: Tanu Rabbanan v'yiskadishtem, and you should. So instead of being defiling, it says v'yiskadishtem. You should make yourself holy. V'yisim kadoshim, and you will be holy. So again, it's the same parallel language. You will become holy, and you will be holy. You will become defiled, and you will be defiled. So same language. The person sanctifies himself a little bit. They sanctify him a lot. Milmata, he sanctifies himself from below. They sanctify him from above. He sanctifies himself in this world. They sanctify him in the next world. Right. So in this brisa, which is brought just a few lines later in this Gemara, there's a pure, perfect parallel between the side of the good and the side of the bad, right? So I don't know how the two things fit together. Anyway, so that's just in relation to what we said last week. Finally, so the last thing we said from last week was that there are two time periods. There's a time period for labor. There's a time period when God says, okay, here's your chance to train. So basically, right, so we were in a state of war. You're put here, you got your neshama on one hand, you got your body on the other hand. You're put into this training course, which is your life, right? And if you come out victorious, you get into Olam Haba. If you don't come out victorious, then whatever, either you try again or you whatever. But but there's a time for the obstacle course, that's this world, and there's a time for reward, that's the next world. And so he told us that obviously the laws of nature, the laws of the environment and the laws of nature and everything that exists in this world and the next world are completely different. One is suited for the time of challenge, for the obstacle course, and the other one is suited for the reward. Okay, so that's that. Let's now move on. So now with the new stuff. So Perek Gimel, hey, I mean we started this, but let's do it again. And what else you need to know? Shehine, that behold, Aminha Enoishi, that this human species, Ein Inyona Harishon, its original state, is not the same that we see and we delineate right now. Okay? The way we see mankind right now is not the same as it was in the original plan. Ki ulam, for however, shinoi godol hayaboy, there was a great change in him. V'hu inyan cheto shel adam harishon, that was the idea behind the sin of the first man. Shenishtane boy ha'odam, that through it the person was changed. V'ha'olam, and the world that he occupies, mimash hoya b'tchila, from what it was originally. Okay, v'ulam, however, protei hashinu hazeh, the particulars of this change, of this transformation, v'toldeseim, and the effects, rabim, there are many. And we will speak about them as we go on. B'siyat Shema. V'nimtza, however, we have to say, shehad dibur b'minha neishi, when we speak about a human being, v'avchona b'nesu'ov, and we discuss his environment, kfulim, they are doubled. Okay? Ki yidubar boy u'b'nesu'ov b'vchinose koydem achet, we got to speak about him and his surroundings before the sin. We got to speak about him and his surroundings after the sin. As we shall explain right now. So let's see. Now, letter 6. Hine, Odam Arishon, okay, Be'ez Yitziroso, at the time of his formation, okay, we spend time on this, but it doesn't say creation. It says be'ez yitziros, so at the time of his formation. He was exactly in this state that we discussed in this until now, which is what? This perfect balance between good and evil, perfect ability to choose whichever side he wants, whether he wants to go towards good, or whether he wants to go towards bad. He has perfect, equal, balanced pull. The Haino Shehoyo Murkov min Shnei Achalokim, he was a compound, he was grafted from two parts, Hahofkim, that are opposites, Shamarnu, that we spoke about, Shehem and Neshama v'Aguf, they are the body and the soul, Uva Mitzius Hoyo Shnei Ha'inyonim, and in the world, in creation, there were two things that existed, Hatoiv v'Ara, namely good and evil, V'hu oimid b'shikul b'neim, and he stood in a perfect balance between the two, lihidovek b'mashi yirtze mehem, to attach himself to whichever part he desired. Okay, v'hinei hoyeroi lo shivcher batoiv. That would be proper that he should have selected the good. Okay, we're going to dwell on this in a little bit. V'yagbir nishmosoi al hagufo. If he would have chosen to do the right thing, if he would have chosen to do the right thing, at that point the neshama, his soul, would overpower the body, right? So his spiritual nature would overpower his physical nature. V'sichloi al chomer, and his intellect over his physicality. V'oz hoya mishtalem miyad, he would have been immediately perfected. Okay? V'noch b'shleimus lo netzach, and then he would enjoy his perfection forever. Good? Well, let's think about that for a second. So what do we know about Adam Arishon in Gan Eden? So he is created, right? They give him a wife, right? And then what?
You know what? Interesting thing, he was told, don't do anything, just don't eat. He wasn't asked to do anything. Just
Good point.
Stay put, it'll be
So,
fine.
right, that's not what it sounds like over here.
Yeah.
Over here it sounds he was acquiring some sorts of perfection.
Yeah.
That's not what it seems. The only thing he had to do was, you see this? Enjoy yourself, run around, do whatever you want. Just, you see that little tree over there? Just don't eat from there. Okay? So that's what it seems. Somebody said, oh, it's like, you know, that marshmallow test? You know, this by the,
It's not the same.
you know, this Stanford, I think it's Stanford test or whatever they call it. Basically, there is this theory. I mean, it certainly fits with our religion very well. But there's the theory that you can test if you test a 5-year-old kid, there's a very easy way to tell if this kid is going to be successful or not. Okay? And basically, you give him a marshmallow, okay? And you tell him that, okay, I'm going to leave this room. Here's a marshmallow. If you don't eat this marshmallow for 15 minutes, when I come back, I will give you another marshmallow. But if you do eat it, then it's just gone, right? So the kids that are able to withhold immediate gratification for future gratification have like a 75%, or some high number percent of being much more successful than the kids that can't control themselves, right? Okay, so maybe one theory was that, you know, this was a marshmallow test for, you know, for just for the one day, was like, because there is an understanding that if Shabbos would have come and Adam Arishon would not have sinned, then Shabbos would have been that Olam Haba, and that's it. And so all he had to do was control himself for the rest of the day until Shabbos, and then that's it. And that was the whole purpose of creation. So the whole obstacle course was, you know, 6 hours long. So that's one interpretation. But there is another interpretation that it does not say that he was put into the garden to do nothing. It actually says two words of why he was placed into the garden. It says he was placed into the garden le'avda u'l'shamra. Le'avda u'l'shamra, which means to serve it and to protect it. Le'avda u'l'shamra, to serve it and to protect it. And so the commentators say that le'avda is referring to positive commandments, whatever they were. We don't know exactly what they were, because the state of Adam Arishon was not exactly the same as our state. But in l'shamra, which means to guard, it is referring to negative commandments, meaning that besides the commandment of don't eat from the Eitz Hadas, there was some kind of a spiritual work that he was involved in. There was something that he was doing. It's not like he was just running around frolicking in Gan Eden. He was in the process of connecting with God, of doing whatever this thing called Dvekus. On top of that, he had a commandment that don't eat from this tree of knowledge. Whatever that tree of knowledge is, either we don't really know what it is, right? So that's that. So it seems like, again, over here it seems like it's not just he had to abstain from something. It's besides abstaining, he was actively involved in perfecting himself. and the tree of knowledge just represented those things that were preventing him from perfecting himself. Good, but if he so initially Adam Rishon was created in that perfect balance. He was working on self-perfection, and he messed up with the Eitz Hadas. But if he wouldn't have messed up, he would have gone into Shabbos, and that would be the purpose of creation, and that's it. That was the whole thing. Let's see the next letter. Okay, now with letter 7. V'tzarich sheteda. Okay, you also need to know she'af al pi she'einonu margishim l'neshama baguf. Right. So even though this is now getting very interesting. So, which is just an introduction. I mean, we constantly talk about the soul. We don't really know what that is. I really don't like it when I hear different, even rabbis or rebbitzins use these terms without knowing what they are. Okay, but anyways, we'll see. But what Tzarech Sheteda, you should know, she'af al pi she'einanu margishim l'neshama. We don't really have a sense of our neshama, baguf, in our body, pe'ula acheres, except for this action, zula sachius v'haskol, except for the action that we know that we are alive, and we presume that our vitality is coming from the fact that our neshama is still connected to our body, and is right. When a person dies, his neshama is no longer connected to his body. So this that we are alive, that tells us that there's a soul within us. V'haskola, and also our intellectual abilities are coming from our soul. That's what he says. Hine be'emes, however, in truth, yesh b'chuko, in its true nature, it possesses the ability shetizakeich etzem haguf, to purify the essence of the body, v'chomroi, and its physicality, v'ta'alehu ilui acher ilui, and to raise it step by step, really up and high. So this is something that was clear really before, the way that he spoke about the body, right? That the neshama has the ability to drag the body up with it. That is really a weird thing. How would the neshama have such an ability? I mean, we questioned this a little bit last time when we discussed the machlokas, the Ramchal and the Rambam, whether or not there is a body in the world to come. Especially, so on one hand, he paints the body as a physical, limited thing, with with being as distant from God as possible, and yet somehow the neshama is able to drag the body with it to olam haba and to perfection and to all these things. So how does that happen? Either the body is very limited, physical, and completely distant from God, or it's not. So, right? Or it's not a body, meaning, so is it a body or is it not a body? Right? That's not very clear from this. But he's telling us that even though, so right now, mostly we recognize ourselves as this piece of flesh and skins and bones right here. It just happens to be there is a sense of life here that comes from our neshama. But we don't really know what the neshama is, and we don't fully appreciate what the powers of the neshama are. Right? But the neshama, he's saying, has the ability to somehow, whatever it is, purify the body. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but let's see a little more. But it has this ability, and to such a degree that the body then will be able, lehislavois imo, to accompany it, meaning the soul, behano b'shleimus, into this pleasure, into this enjoyment of perfection.
Well, that doesn't make sense, because a dead person is tummy, a live person not tummy.
Right.
So as long as the neshama is there, it purifies. It's gone. It's not. Makes sense.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that purifies it. I would say perhaps that. So the opposite of tuma, right, defilement, is tahar.
Okay.
Tahar is not necessarily kedusha. Kedusha is a level of holiness. tahar is level of purity. It's I mean, it's pure, but it's not. It's, you know, meaning what I'm trying to say is that tuma, which is defilement, is the absence of tahara, of purity. If there's an absence of purity, so that's
So
it's like a vacuum. It's a vacuum. But I'm not sure if but the neshama, I'm not sure if neshama is purifying, as the way we're saying it. Lizdakech, you know, we're using the same English word, but lizdakech means to, like, you know, to, like, purify in a sense, like you throw a base metal into a, not a base metal, whatever, dirty metal into a fire, and all the imperfections get burnt up.
Okay.
Right? That's lizdakech. That's the purify. So does the neshama do that? I don't know. The neshama just a dead body is like a vacuum. It's missing its key ingredient. So that's tuma. The tuma is the lack of the lack. Okay, I'm not sure.
Okay.
So okay, let's just read this paragraph, and maybe I'll just say one idea. But okay, so but yesh b'chuko, that has the ability shitazakech etzem haguf, that to purify the essence of the body, v'chomroi, and its physicality, but talehu iloi acher iloi, and to raise it one step after another, until that it has the ability to accompany it into this enjoyment of perfection. V'amnam, however, l'dover zeh hoya odom rishon hamagia, to this is the state that the first man would have reached, ilu lo'achoto, if not for the fact that he sinned. Shehoyso nishmosoi mizakeches as gufoi, because what would have happened is that his neshama would have purified his body, zikuch achar zikuch, step by step, purification after purification, until he would have reached the purification that was necessary, v'nikba betanug hanitzchi, and then he would have been established to eternal bliss, everlasting bliss. Right? So even though, so what I'm just going to say is this. So what's clear, what comes out clear from this is that, so even though on one hand, our physical body is very physical, which seems to be the antithesis of spirituality, and it's pulling the neshama, and it's struggling, and there's a war, and it's a battle scene, and it's pulling it away from perfection. It's not like that. The body the way it was created, I don't know how to say it, but the way it was created, it was made, I don't want to say neutral, because it's not exactly neutral, but it's made, how do I say it? Yeah, okay, but I'll say it like this, meaning, like, Birkas Kohanim, okay? Give an example, maybe. Birkas Kohanim. The Kohanim go and bless, okay? They have this mitzvah to bless Klal Yisrael. Now, they could have just come and said, you know, bless you, my sons and my brothers and sisters. You should have a good life and everything will be good. Fine. But what do? What happens instead? They take off their shoes, they raise their fingers, and they do this stuff. Why are they raising their hands and fingers? What's that? What's that all about? Right? So for some reason, again, and then maybe they should do some kind of fingers, you know, systems also, right? Somehow within this very physical body, but the shape, the form, the symbolism, there is kind of encoded elements of spirituality into it. So that even though it is physical, it also is a carrier in its very kind of form. It is a carrier of spiritual ideas. And so the neshama has the ability to make those folds of kind of spirituality that is part of that body to just come to the surface. The body is not, it's physical, but it's within that physicality lies the ability to, for, I don't know, to kind of to hide spirituality. I don't know, does that make any sense? But so even though on one hand this body is very physical, everything about it is pure physicality. On the other hand, it's a perfect creation to be able to be transformed, to be metamorphosized into something spiritual. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. And again, it's just a hypothesis. I don't know anything about this, but that's what it seems to me. Okay, Ches. So let's see this paragraph. Okay, v'kivan shechata adam harishon. And since the sin of the first man, nishtanu hadvarim shinui gadol, the things experienced a great change. Behu, and it is kihine, because behold, batchila hoyu babriya hachisroinus shehoyu, in the beginning, within creations, the elements of lacking, right, the things that were imperfections, chesroinos, the lackings, were existed b'shiyur, in a measurement, mashahoyo mitztarech, that was necessary or just necessary, l'shehiyo odom harishon b'matzav hashikul, that a person, the first man, should be in a state of balance, shezacharnu, that we mentioned. V'yeh lamokim, and there was just enough place for him, an opportunity for him, leharviach, to gain access, to earn, as a shleimus b'yagia kampov, through his own efforts, right? So evil existed only as a tool to achieve perfection. Amnam, however, al yidei chetoi, through his sin, noisfu v'nisrabu chesroinus, there were added and there increased elements of chisaron, elements of lack, elements of imperfection. Be'atzmoi shel odom, first of all, within the essence of man, uba bria kulo, but also within the creation itself. Right? So Chet of Adam Harishon did two things. It increased evil, it added evil within himself and within the world. Perush, v'oid niskasha atiknu mashu hayu kodim, and so as a result, the fixing, or the things that the attainment of perfection became doubly difficult from what it was before. Perush, meaning kihine batchila, because in the beginning, hoyanokil loy lotzeis min hachisaron, it was easy for him to leave behind elements of chisaron, elements of lacking, hamud baboy, that were part of his nature, v'liknais ashleimus, and to acquire the state of perfection. Shekach sidra chachma, because that's how it was arranged by the infinite wisdom. Esadvorim, all of these things. Al pi midas hatoiv v'ayoisher, based on the midah, the quality, the characteristic of good and straightness. Kiyan, because initially, there was no other purpose to evil and to the elements of lacking, meaning, I'm not saying that clearly, but meaning whatever elements of imperfection that existed within man, clearly there must have been elements of imperfection. How do I know that there were elements of imperfection? Because his job was to perfect himself. So you can only perfect yourself from a state of imperfection. So if anything that's imperfection is what we call evil, right? And anything that's perfection is what we call good. So what was the state of Adam Harishon before the sin? He didn't sin, so he didn't achieve any evil. But he wasn't perfect, right, because he had still work to do, right? But what he's saying is that the evil that existed within him at that time, or I should say evil, but the elements of imperfection that existed with him in that time, they were not considered evil because they were just part of his natural state that he was born with, right? So meaning even today, perhaps a person is born. Every one of us is dealt with a certain set of personality traits, right? Some people are more patient, other people are less patient. Some people are more kind, other people are more stingy. We are given a certain hand. Okay? So that hand that we are given, we are not blamed for that hand. That is just our natural state. That's how we were created. Now, what we do with that hand, if we work on it and we improve it, right? So then we are tzaddikim. If we don't work on it and we let it become even worse, then we become rashaim, right? So the elements of the elements of imperfection that he possessed as a result of his creation, that was not considered a fault, because that was just his state of nature.
Part of the design.
Right. So let's see that again. So right, Kiyan loy hoyo siba l'rava l'chisaron sheboy, because there was no other cause to the evil and to the lacking that existed in him. Ela shekachu b'yitzirosoi, but only that he was thus created. Hine b'mashi yosir atzma min hara. So, but through removing himself from evil, v'yifne ela tov, and to turning towards good, yasig miyad tzeisoi min hachasoron, he would immediately achieve leaving those imperfections, uknoi soy hashlemus, and leaving imperfection by definition gets you towards perfection. Amnam bechetoi, however, through his sin, kivan shal yodoi nistara hashlemus yoiser mishahoisa, since through his action the perfection was nister, was hidden, was concealed more than it was before, right? So before it was in a state of balance, right? There were elements of perfection, elements of imperfection. By him moving away, what he did was he revealed more of the imperfections and he concealed more of the elements of perfection. The perfection was concealed more than it was before, and the elements, the lackings were increased. Not only that, he was the cause of this evil. It's not going to be that easy for him to return in order to leave behind the elements of lacking, and to acquire perfection. As it was, who at the time that he was not the cause of this evil, because he was just created that way, right? He was not the source, the cause of his lacking. Rather, he was just formed that way, from originally. As I mentioned, and certainly since it was by force. But now the effort that is needed at this time, it is double. Now this is interesting. First he needs to return. He needs to return man and the world to the state that it was originally, okay, before the sin. And after that, then the world and the people will be able to elevate themselves from that state to the state of perfection that he was originally able to attain. So now, if you were to ask me, I would have just said, okay, now that we have fallen, right, from our original state of balance, so it's true. So we took the long way to that perfection. But I wouldn't have said necessarily that the way to get back to that perfection is first we have to undo the damage that we did, return ourselves to the state of equilibrium, and then from that state of equilibrium achieve perfection. So it's a two-step process, which is completely return. I just said that we have a new path to perfection. Through the darkness, we're going to elevate ourselves to the state of perfection. That's what I would have said. He's saying not like that. He's saying that, no, first, our job right now is not really to achieve the state of perfection of Adam Rishon before the sin. Our job is to return to the state of Adam Rishon before the sin. Okay, and then once we return to that state, then we can try it again to achieve the state of perfection that Adam Rishon could have stayed. All right. Why do I say that he says it's a two-step process? Because if my memory serves me right, the times of Mashiach, the way he's going to set up the history of the world, Mashiach is not to be confused with the state of perfection. The Mashiach, the era of Mashiach, is really, according to him, is return to the state of Adam before the sin. Okay, so that's what we are aiming for. That we are aiming for Mashiach is just to return to Adam Rishon before the sin. Okay, so but now on that, instead of an individual level like Adam Rishon had, now it's more on a communal level, on a social level, for national level. Okay, I guess we'll stop here.